Sydney City Street Choir or something else. I think it's great because Christmas carols are really meant to be enjoyed, Christmas songs. They're not just performance, they're actually to be enjoyed. And these guys enjoy it, there's no doubt about that.
Christmas means having a new family. I never had a family to have Christmas with for the last 2 years.
It's the time of year when humanity seems to come together a little bit.
Regardless of anyone's faith, there is a global desire for peace and harmony. I feel that every year, and I hope most others do.
It's the second most important day of the year. It's the birth of Christ, second only to Easter, his resurrection. Simply, that's what it means to me. It's a day you can never truly be homeless.
Oh, joyful Christmas cheer, we worship the baby boy.
Christmas is really, for most people, an important part of the year. For Christian people, it's significant because it stands at the very heart of our Christian faith. But for most people, it's a time when people can get together with their families, with the people who care for them. So for us at Wesley Mission, working with people who perhaps don't have the family support networks that other people have got, it becomes an increasingly important part of our work and our witness.
For people on the streets, Christmas is not usually a family time. The reason a lot of people are on the streets is because they've left their family. Their family can't cope with them, or they can't cope with their family. So these centres, like the drop-in centre at Edward Eagle Lodge, are very, very important to people.
I woke up early, 7:30, and began drinking, and all these people were walking past me, and they were going into their offices and jobs in the city, and there were hundreds and hundreds of people streaming past, and I was 20 feet from them in my dirty, stinking clothes and my beard, drinking myself to death, and I was an outcast. I was just like I was in a separate world.
One of the interesting things about homelessness is that in my time working in this field, I've met people from all sorts of backgrounds. I've certainly met lawyers, teachers, accountants, former TV celebrities, former leading sports people, and all of them, something has gone wrong in their life and they've found themselves on Skid Row. And it's made me realise that all of us are only 1 or 2 steps away from something going wrong in our lives and finding ourselves homeless.
I used to have a job in the city, and I used to walk past homeless people and bums, that I used to call them, and men and women with brown paper bags and bottles of methylated spirits. And I used to look, I didn't even look down on them, I just didn't even look at them. I ignored them like trash. And then, you know, God has a funny way of opening one's eyes. You know, I ended up one of those people. God has a funny way of opening one's eyes. You know, I ended up one of those people. I was shown firsthand what it's like, and it's difficult, and it's lonely and hard. It wasn't until I broke up from my last relationship at the age of 32, 33, and my family home disintegrated. My parents went down to the south coast and my brother moved out, and I was all alone. And so then, left to my own devices, I began to drink on a daily basis. Looking back upon this area now is confronting. It's difficult. You know, looking at the spot now where I slept, it seems like just yesterday. Living in the outdoors and being homeless, of course, is weather dependent. You know, if there were clouds in the sky, I would have this feeling of anxiety and fear about what was going to happen during the night and whether there was any dry place, warm place to sleep the night. If the weather was fine and there were no clouds, then I'd be considering sleeping down amongst these rocks here.
Initially, I have to say, we were unaware that he had a problem for some time, and when he did have the problem, we had great difficulty in communicating. It was quite devastating from our point of view.
As parents, you worry about everything. I mean, and then you think you're overreacting and maybe the problem isn't that big. Well, in fact, it was much bigger. But
I guess we tried not to get angry.
Yeah, well, yes, it's hard when you want to help somebody if they don't want the help. It's very difficult.
I would often sit down on these rocks and look out to the ferries and Sydney Harbour. Just in silence most of the day, in contemplation. And there's the old saying that you think and you drink, and you think and you drink, and you think and you drink, and you think some more, and you know, it's a vicious cycle that can happen all day. I guess shame would cause me to drink during that time, and I would be regretful about things that I've done, opportunities that I've missed, good jobs that I'd let go, that I'd lost due to drinking and drugging. So that was one of the causes. Most of the day, as all other days, I spent trying to keep up my addiction, which was to gather money, get money for alcohol or drugs, and going to bottle shops, getting the cheapest wine possible, usually cask wine. I would go from bottle shop to bottle shop in Manly, looking for the best price.
Did we support him in that way? I was not supportive of that, but mums are mums, and Mum did.
Mums are soft, and he'd maybe come to me and say, "Oh, Mum, I can't pay my rent this week," and I'd say, "Oh, okay, that's all right, sweetheart. Try and make it up next week." And he'd say, "Oh, okay, Mum," but of course, it never did.
Christmas time, of course, can be quite a negative thing of emphasising that shame and sense of inferiority and low self-esteem and so on that's associated with finding themselves homeless.
Christmas time, it's all the worse because people are with their families. There's all Christmas celebrations going on and Christmas trees, and there's none of that. You know, there's just the same old routine. Waking up first thing in the morning and having alcohol and being drunk all day and trying to find somewhere to sleep at night.
Christmas to us is quite important from the insular family point of view, but always we would miss him, and we'd have some contact, of course, but
A phone call.
the people that the addictions that he was involved in tend to make contact, but not really let you know the situation they're in. But we became more apparent to us later when we saw other people in those situations, and we thought, well, that was our son. From my point of view, I was quite ashamed that I didn't do more, but I wasn't aware of what I needed to do.
The one thing that I have in my head, and I'm sure there are circumstances of people being charitable and kind. I had a very close friend that put me up for 6 months on his floor. That was incredible. But what's really standing out in my mind is that one phone call that was made for me on my last day of drinking. And it was a phone call made to the detox to try and get me into detox. And him saying, if you want to change, I'll help you. And I just broke down crying. And I cried and I cried. I couldn't talk. I was blubbering all over the place.
Personally, I thought that he wouldn't make it.
I still wasn't comfortable with living a sober life, of course. I was in detox for around 10 days, and detox is an intensive management program. It's like a jail. You're under lock and key and escorted up to the shops once a day.
Wesley Rehabilitation Services is for men and women. Most of our clients would come from a detox. And what happens is they get to the detox, and if they can't find somewhere to go after that, they're back just on the street trying to manage their life with no support, so they will often go back into addiction.
I can still remember that day. I was fresh from detox. I was quite frightened. I didn't know what rehab was. I wasn't sure whether recovery was for me. I didn't know whether I wanted to stay in the rehab.
I guess they don't have much belief that their life can ever be any different, but we have the belief for them. Basically, we're providing the closest thing that we can possibly do to a community that cares and shares. It's like what we want to have is like a substitute family environment here where everybody feels part of something.
There was a period there where I would leave my bag at the end of my bed packed, ready for a quick takeoff, and I hadn't decided or committed myself fully to the program and recovery. Nerida is, she's the linchpin of the whole place. She makes the whole place run. Without her, the rehabilitation service wouldn't be here. And personally, she's played a pretty major part in my recovery.
Oh, thank you. You're so nice. One of the greatest needs in our society today is drugs and alcohol addiction. People are wounded and broken. They have so much pain on the inside, and drink and drugs is a way of medicating the emotional pain. Now, if a person has a purpose for their life, you don't need to escape from reality every day through drink and drugs. So we want people to find their purpose for life, and I think that's what Wesley Mission does, and that's what God does.
Probably I've got to say my best Christmas was my first sober Christmas out at the rehab. We have Santa Claus come out and visit us, and we all get to sit on Santa's knee. For some, that's not such a great experience, depending on who Santa Claus is at the time. And that was, I guess, my most important Christmas. Because Christmas, for me, was often associated with drinking. Even before it got to the stage where I was here in the Rocks homeless. So my most important Christmas in my life was my first sober Christmas. I chose not to go home and be with family. At that first Christmas, I chose to be at the rehab and celebrate a sober life.
Well, to find him again was absolutely initially devastating because when we found him again, he was first into detox, and to see him grow over the time that he's been with Wesley Mission, where he is, has been just to watch him grow and come back to be even better man than he was before we lost him has just been a wonderful experience.
It was really annoying.
Well, it's true, isn't it?
Yeah, they don't often know.
The story of Trenton and many of the people we try to help here at Wesley Mission, they're inspirational really, because they're often stories of reconnection. Jesus, the great storyteller, perhaps the best known story he ever told, has been described as the prodigal son. It's actually the story of two lost sons, but I think it's more than that actually. It's the story of somebody who goes away from home, asks for everything that's due to him, and he gets it all, he wastes it all, he spends it all, and then he comes to a moment where he wants to go back, but he's got obstacles to overcome. He's got that pride in him that says, you know, I don't want to have to go back and admit that I'm wrong and seek for help. But when he does come to his senses, and that's a great part of the story of me, when he came to his senses and he goes back, the great thing is he finds his father willing to receive him. And that's what the parable, the story is all about, that welcome that the father gives. And that to me is the story of reconnection. And once you make that reconnection in people's lives, well, everything comes together in a whole wonderful way, as we see in Trenton's life, but as we see in people day in and day out who make that wonderful reconnection with God.
Is there any stigma in having a son with that problem? Not at all. Originally we were a little bit reticent. Now we quite openly tell people that our son is in rehab. We encourage them. You'd be surprised the amount of people that you talk to that have similar problems with their sons or daughters, whether it be alcohol, drugs, gambling or whatever else. You feel better for it when you tell people.
We're very proud of him. We will tell people.
There are going to be a lot of people who, you know, they won't have been on the street for very long. They'll decide they want to get off the drink or they want to get off the drugs. They'll go into a rehab program. They'll come out the other side successfully, or if not the first time, maybe the second time, get a job, get housing, maybe get back together with their family. I mean, those things, you know, definitely happen. But there are a lot of people for whom that's not going to happen.
On it being tuned and the tuner came as
If we mean by getting people back on track, we mean providing people with places where they can socialise, where they can form community, providing them with the therapy and housing services which are going to enable them to take some responsibility for their own lives and find some meaning and purpose in their life, yes, of course. But, you know, a person can be very happy being involved with, say, the Sydney Street Choir. This, for a lot of people, this provides a great source of responsibility. They need a great degree of discipline to get to the practices, to be involved with the performances, to listen to what's happening, to cooperate with other people.
We've always got the goal of helping a person and assessing their needs and trying to lead them out of homelessness into some more suitable place. We've got to be careful that we're not imposing our particular middle-class set of values on people if that's not appropriate. But it can be a slow process, and it's a step-by-step, often slow, incremental process of assisting a person. And sometimes we cheer because someone's made some positive steps forward, and then we say, oh, he's slid back again. But we keep plugging away. No person is irredeemable, and no matter how bad their backsliding might be in terms of an addiction or other issues, we don't give up. We hang in there. When we're relying on other resources, sometimes those other resources are just non-existent or have huge waiting lists in terms of specialised accommodation and so on. So we just have to be patient and work away with the person, maintaining the relationship and assisting them.
I think we've had a great time today. The great thing about this is people have been able to come and go just as they like and really enjoy the fun. I think many of us are eating far too much, but what matters isn't just the fact that we've been eating, it's that we've been able to enjoy a meal together. And for many of these guys who spend their time on their own, it means a great deal to be able to come together and really enjoy what the real meaning of Christmas is.